Hello everyone and welcome back to the Warwick F1 show. Wow, I mean, we were due thunderstorms for Miami. We didn't quite get them. We didn't want thunderstorms, but we didn't need rain either in order to deliver a banger on Sunday. This is your Miami GP review episode. I'm your host Daniel. I'm joined by my co-hosts as ever, Lucy and Callum, and we have our F1 Society President Jensen here with us to recap the events of the race. Hi Jensen. Let's go firstly into kind of our initial reflections on the race. I want a rating out of 10 from each of you, kind of swayed slightly by qualifying and the sprint as well. You can give that a bit of influence over it if you like, but mostly over what you thought of the race's events on Sunday. Callum, can we start with you, please?
Yeah, I think so. I'm tempted to actually say that it might have been the most entertaining race of the season so far, which seems very strange, and I have to pinch myself when I say that because we are talking at the end of the day about Miami. Trust us to give Miami an absolutely poor rating in a circuit review and then for it to produce one of the all-time races of the season, perhaps. But no, I think I'm probably going to give it about maybe an 8 or... No, I can't give any more than an 8, I think. But an 8 out of 10. Maybe a bit of, if anything, the middle was maybe not too much happening, but certainly, of course, the start and the end were just on the edge of my seat all the time. And very, very chaotic as well, obviously. And also, I think unlike Australia, which I think was the only other race that I might give a very high rating, the overtakes and the battling did feel, for some reason, a bit more genuine. I don't really know why, but they felt a bit more genuine rather than this kind of back and forth stuff that we've been used to and that's kind of expected with these new regulations. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Jensen, do you agree?
I agree to an extent. I think I would still put Australia ahead, just because it was, in terms of, for pure entertainment, I think it was better. And I think the farcical nature of the overtakes in Australia gets balanced out by the farcical nature of a lot of the decisions that were made by the FIA in Miami, i.e. I thought the 20-second penalty was harsh, to get onto that, and the Lawson having to let Verstappen through is going in my head a lot. I've just seen the clips from that, and that's really annoying me. But I would also give it an 8, I think, yeah.
An 8, fair enough. Is it 8 all round, Lucy?
I would probably give the race itself an 8. I mean, you said we could incorporate a little bit our opinion of the whole weekend, and that would probably drop it down to a 7.5, purely because I know Callum was like, it feels weird that we gave Miami such a low rating in the circuits and then it produced a really good race. I think the sprint, though, shows...
The sprint was awful.
The sprint, though, shows that the circuit's still a beacon of trash.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I would say still really fun. I had a fantastic time. I was actually saying one of my friends who was really bored and wanted to procrastinate doing his essay had never watched F1 before, and so we brought him along to the race on Sunday. And he's now become like a dedicated F1 fan for life, I think. He was really hyped by it. So somehow Miami ended up being interesting enough to entice a new F1 fan.
The fact that he's going to go through the remainder of his life saying that the first race that got him into the sport was Miami is insane, but it is actually true.
I mean, I got into the sport because of Monaco, so I don't think I'm much
enough.
better. But I would say 7.5 for the weekend as a whole, but the actual race itself, when we get onto the predictions, I was a little annoyed the race start was brought forward because I thought it would mean that I wouldn't get my random prediction of people starting on the wet tyres.
Oh, yeah.
In the end, we didn't need that, you know. It became quite funny that everyone was talking about rain and then none happened. But maybe in the middle I was thinking, okay, maybe if we had a bit of rain that would make it interesting. But we didn't need it. I only kind of felt the absence of there being rain because it had been hyped up as such a big thing going into the weekend. Had I not expected there to be rain, I wouldn't have thought at all, we really need some rain to make this interesting. So 7.5, 8. 8 for the actual race, really, so yeah.
I think we're all in agreement. I'd go for an 8 as well. I think it was a very fun race to watch and enjoy. A bit quiet in the middle, but the start and
We're
the end
definitely
were
reserving
frantic.
the 9 and 10 for like an absolute banger that will probably come around, I don't know, Silverstone.
I was going to say, we're saving the 9s and 10s for Interlagos.
No, for some European races or Interlagos.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know what? I think
Silverstone sprint race?
Maybe.
I mean, I think in general the Miami race is actually, the Miami track is slightly underrated. I think they'll only be shown more by the new regulations, just because I think, for example, the main problem was that how easy the overtakes were, and I think because of the super clipping and stuff like that, it become harder to overtake and easier to re-overtake as well. I think the same for Vegas, which I was thinking is underrated.
I just to sort of piggyback off of that, I think it's interesting you're talking about that, because I think what we ended up seeing a lot of is that the bits where, you know, it was possible for there to be re-overtakes, whereas before in earlier races it kind of felt like that made it all a bit flip-floppy. This time it meant that we saw drivers having to think more about not overtaking into, say, like the last kind of chicane, because then they would be very easily overtaken on the first straight. I can't remember what corners they are. I'm really sorry. I'm very, very bad at this.
I think it's turn 16 is fine.
Yeah, but we saw things like that about having to put more strategy into the overtakes, which I think was good. That's kind of what I wanted. But anyway, back to Daniel as the host of the podcast.
No, I completely agree. I mean, we saw a lot of games being played, especially concerning the overtake line, didn't we? Charles Leclerc letting Piastri through, for example, and closing his straight line mode in order to let Piastri through, because he thought that was a good idea. Turned out to be quite the opposite for him, but
It was quite funny though.
it was quite well. I mean, his spin wasn't. It was heartbreaking.
No, I mean the whole.
That was funny as well for me, but that might just be me, isn't it?
It's always really funny
No.
it's always really funny when drivers are kind of like backing out of an overtake to make sure they get the previously the DRS detection line.
You know what it reminded me of? Mine and Callum's favourite race of all
I
time.
knew you were going to
Saudi
say.
Arabia 2021.
Oh, yeah.
DRS
Do you know what this
games.
race reminded me of as well? My favourite race of all time, because this had the second youngest podium in history. And do you know what the youngest average age of podium in history was? That's right, Brazil 2019, my favourite race.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
19. Wow. Okay. Didn't know that one. Let's talk about the start at what was supposed to be the start of this episode, but it's been about 7 minutes now. And we'll get into one of the big talking points that came out of Sunday, which was Max Verstappen on a mad one, to put it politely. So let's first sort of discuss his spin and what we thought about that. For me, it was one of those things where it was a brilliant save, but it would have been very embarrassing for him if he hadn't. I think Max has a few of those. He had it in Mexico last year, where he puts himself in those positions where he has to make the save, and it would look terrible for him because he's just binned it if he doesn't make the save. But at the same time, he demonstrates epic car control in doing so. Thoughts on that and kind of his charge back through the field and Max's weekend? We didn't really get to see what kind of pace Red Bull had as a result of that, Lucy. What's kind of your feeling on Max's Sunday and kind of his recovery that he was forced to make?
It was quite funny because Verstappen also got driver of the day. And obviously when it does driver of the day, it comes up with the position started and position ended. And it really felt like, not quite because that was different, but like when he got driver of the day in, I think it was Spain last year, because everyone had voted before he drove into George Russell. So it was like starting position P3, end position P10, driver of the day. It was the starting position P2, end position P5, driver of the day.
It definitely doesn't sum up the whole story of the race, does it? Yeah.
No, but I thought some of the overtakes were impressive. I think that Jensen already mentioned him going past Lawson, which I think I wasn't particularly happy with, mainly as well because, you know, this sounds really mean, but one of the things I like when sort of a front contender has a spin or has a slow pit stop, or, you know, maybe even gets like damage and has to pit change a front wing or something, is that we get to see a really fun charge through the field, and especially with Verstappen, usually a lot of fun overtakes. And so I feel like any of those that were sort of like, am I biased because I'm a Williams fan? Yes. Did I also think him fighting with the Williams was incredibly cool and was some really like, I just had a lot of fun watching it? Also, yes. It was really, I really liked it. It was really great. And yeah, so I think he had a very good recovery. Again, like you kind of said, don't really have any data on how the Red Bull is doing because of it. But I think ultimately it's still a weekend that Red Bull can be all right with, given it was a pretty salvageable, Verstappen salvaged that weekend for them pretty well, because as I'm sure we'll get onto momentarily, had he binned it, or had he not been able to do a recovery drive, we might be talking about this as one of like the worst weekends that Red Bull's had in a while.
Yeah, I don't think it certainly wasn't obviously helped by, in terms of for Red Bull, that obviously what happened to Hadjar crashing out on his own accord, which I'm sure we'll get onto in a minute. But I actually, watching the incident, I thought initially he got tapped from the rear wheel of Charles Leclerc, but it actually wasn't. It was just that I think he got caught on that curb, which I think a couple of drivers almost got caught out with at some point as well in the race. But even with what happening with Verstappen and the fact that he did have to charge through the field after that, I still wasn't completely convinced that he would have actually had the pace to battle either the Mercedes or the McLaren, to be honest, because he was kind of in a kind of no man's land in a way. He didn't look like he was ever going to challenge, as I say, the Mercedes and the McLarens, but then the drivers that were behind him were, I guess, Hamilton, who was kind of nowhere for the whole race, and then obviously Colapinto, and then what happened to Leclerc in the end. But Leclerc did in the end actually have pace to outscore him if it wasn't for that incident he had in the final lap. So I still think that even with what happened with him on the final lap, I'm not obviously concerned about him. He's Max Verstappen. I think he's, given what he can do, I think he's maybe allowed a slight incident every now and again just to remind us that he's human and not some just sort of racing robot. But I think, yeah, I think it's a pretty disappointing weekend for Red Bull as a whole, even with the overtakes that Verstappen was able to get, as I think clearly they are third at best, probably even a solid fourth at the moment in comparison to the other top three teams.
I really don't like the rhetoric that's been going around about Red Bull this race, particularly to do with Max Verstappen. Martin Brundle on the replay, when they replayed the start, he called Max Verstappen spin genius, and I'm sorry, I think a lot of the time Max Verstappen was given a free pass just because of how good he is. What he did is he made a mistake. It wasn't a save. He made a mistake in the first place. For me, a save is when you stop the car going round. The car went round. He went out of the top 10, I think, and he lost a lot of time. But that's forgotten because I feel like it's Max Verstappen. I don't think he had a good race at all. The fact he got driver of the day is almost farcical, I think. And I think the same. I wish that he was given the same kind of standards that a lot of drivers have, especially also with his overtaking and whatnot. He was complaining about, I think it was Leclerc or I can't remember, one of the bottom top drivers in the race was when he got pushed into the kind of into the pit lane past the bollard. He was complaining about drivers squeezing him off the track, which is just almost ironic. I mean, it's very ironic. It's just like it's the biggest good riddance you've ever seen, to be honest, in my opinion.
No, I think I do agree with that actually, because if you imagine like it was another driver who is perhaps less successful and more prone to mistakes on track that did that spin and recovered it, I'm going to pull one out of my head. Oh, Lance Stroll. Then you could, then we'd obviously be complaining and saying, oh, like how like he's had a terrible race, whatever. But because it's Max Verstappen, you say, oh, it's what a great save. So I think I completely agree with that, Jensen. That it at the end of the day he did make a mistake, But yes, luckily for him, he was able to make somewhat of a recovery drive throughout the race.
I would like to ask, though, as the resident Williams fan, Lucy,
Yeah.
Max Verstappen was being incredibly aggressive in some of the overtakes that he was making. Carlos Sainz himself complained about it and said he thinks he can race however he wants because he's racing the midfield. Do you think he went too far in some of those overtakes?
Listen, to be honest, I'm not actually the person to ask because I'm a Williams fan. In some ways, I've done that thing where I basically look at everything and go, I'm probably just thinking this because I'm a Williams fan, therefore I must be over-exaggerating it. I think that some of the moves did come across as a bit desperate almost, not necessarily illegal. To be honest, as I mentioned a few races ago, it's been a while since I've read the technical regulations, and so
You don't read them every day?
No, I've been busy with my assignments. So I've had to do my actual course readings, not my optional readings.
That's the essential reading for this podcast.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, you can't be here.
Yeah, you need to cancel my co-host. But no, I think that some of them did come across as desperate. And I think I did feel watching it that there was sort of a desperation that he wanted, especially after he had his first pit stop and he ended up making those tyres last a long time. I sensed there was almost kind of a desperation for him to get back into the top fight and back where he kind of thought he belonged amongst the Ferraris, the McLarens, the Mercedes, to be back amongst those people. I hadn't thought about it this way, but you mentioning about how if it was a different driver, we probably wouldn't give him the same grace. I was thinking if it was the other way round, if it was that Verstappen had binned it and Hadjar had had a spin and was having to recover, there is a distinct possibility that we were having a discussion, that we were having a sort of discussion of, well, Hadjar is the second Red Bull driver, so when Verstappen has an off day, it's his job to be a reliable person for Red Bull. He can't be spinning and causing them problems. We might not be having this discussion, but there's a distinct possibility that at least some people would have. And so it's interesting. But yes, I thought some of the moves were a bit iffy on the Williams, but that's because I think that anybody who tries to overtake a Williams shouldn't be allowed to do so.
Of course.
We've seen a lot of that in the last few years, unfortunately, haven't you? People overtaking the Williams.
Well, we've not actually seen very much of that the last few years because, as George Russell once famously said, you can't lose positions if you start last.
Yeah, it's true.
If only every other team thought like that, then they would be world champions.
Yeah, if every team but Williams could really take that message on board, I'd like that.
Mm-hmm. Let's move along to the other side of the Red Bull garage now and talk about someone who wasn't very reliable for Red Bull on Sunday. Isaac Hadjar, clumsy to clip the inside of the corner and hit the wall out of the race. Just, Jensen, what do you think of that?
I think that's tied with Piastri's Australia. I think that's probably the worst weekend we've seen from any driver this year. I was really disappointed from Hadjar. I do still think he's quick, but it wouldn't surprise me again if he succumbs to the second Red Bull driver curse. I think he's incredibly rash as well. I just think about how punching the wheel in the steering wheel in the cockpit, and to an extent, it's kind of you have to kind of realize those things happen. It feels very very early Lando Norris, very F2 F3 Hadjar as well, or any F2 F3 driver where it's like they're getting letting the emotions get better than them, and you can't really have that to be a top tier driver.
Oh, go on.
I think as well, though, is that, and obviously, like, when you're a Formula One driver, there are things like regulating your emotions that come from kind of maturity and things like that, and I'm sure this is the sort of thing we talked about. I think we maybe talked about it a bit last year with how young the rookies tend to be. But Isaac Hadjar is, I think, 21, 22?
Is he 20? Please make him 22 because that means he's at least older than me.
He's not that old.
Should we look up?
I feel that it's. I agree. His mistake was Is he 22?
Okay, no. But he's
21.
He's 3 months older than me.
Okay. But
That's very old.
His mistake was a mistake. It was very much sort of a rookie error almost, is how I would describe it. It was a bit silly to clip the wall, especially after I think we'd seen he'd done a pretty good overtake beforehand. But I can understand, especially in a seat like the Red Bull seat. And in some ways I'm quite biased on this because I think I'm just too much of a nice person really to be on an F1 podcast. Right. But I'll kind of, especially, that's such a high pressure environment that I won't ever think that somebody having emotions about crashing out of a race, especially in a situation where, it's going to be, he's had 5 weeks since his last race. It'll be 3 weeks before he gets the chance to kind of prove himself as sort of a worthy Red Bull driver again. That I can understand why he took that kind of personally, almost as like a personal fault.
Oh yeah, I personally didn't really have a problem too much with the aspect of him actually hitting the steering wheel after he crashed, just because as you mentioned, it's a high pressure environment, especially being in a top seat with a four-time world champion as your teammate,
And also
an
with
expectation
evidence.
to perform, and
evidence that everyone but you's been replaced.
yeah,
already.
literally, and yeah, you've got that knowledge that so many people have failed before you, and so you must feel like every single second counts and every single chance to prove yourself counts. But I honestly thought I saw it and I was like, wow, that's quite uncharacteristic in a way, because even though Hadjar, definitely when he came in, obviously I'm thinking of his crash in Australia. He maybe in his rookie season was subject to the odd mistake, but I thought he's actually performed really well so far for Red Bull. Obviously, we thought he may be the one driver that was able to resist the second seat curse that we're so used to seeing so many drivers fall to. So yeah. I was very surprised actually seeing that happen, especially on his own accord. So I really hope that it doesn't affect the remainder of his season, because I mean, from what we've seen from this season, it seems like being a Red Bull driver is already quite difficult enough, because they are struggling to fight with the top three teams, and so and I do think he deserves to be in that seat, at least so far, with the performances that he's been shown to possibly be capable of. So yeah.
Well, absolutely. I don't think the mistake was huge for me. The worst thing was probably that he was 8/10 off Verstappen in qualifying, when he has been a lot closer.
Yeah,
That is true,
that felt weird that he was that far behind, considering that the first three races we were talking about how sort of by no means is Isaac Hadjar the new sort of Max Verstappen, but like is in terms of replacing sort of out with the old, in with the new.
Yeah.
But he was there and he was solid, and we thought he would be somebody who Red Bull could sort of like have. When Red Bull was, because I'm assuming it's a when, not an if, when Red Bull kind of end up at the front of the field, that they will have a second sort of backup driver to sort of help them on their quest to do good racing stuff. In the way that the other three top tier teams have all seemed to have.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's a credit to Hadjar that we're surprised that he's 8/10 off Verstappen, where instead of being like, oh, that's just the second Red Bull seat curse.
Like, oh my god,
there.
He's only 8/10 off Verstappen.
Good job, you're only 8/10 off Verstappen.
I mean, to talk about the other side, I mean, I think Hadjar has it definitely. I think he has the easiest that a lot of other Red Bull drivers have had, because I think with new regulations, 8/10 isn't 12 positions, it's maybe 2 positions, just because of how the grid is far less spread out. And I think if it was like last year, 8/10 would be the difference between like 4th and 16th. Like, so I think that kind of gives him a free pass as well. I also kind of think that you have to also think with someone like Perez, for example. Obviously he wasn't particularly quick, but you also have to think about what he does bring to the team as well in terms of feedback. Obviously, Hadjar can prove me wrong. I do like Isaac Hadjar quite a lot, but I can't imagine he's brilliant with feedback, especially if he's very emotional and rash like that. I think you have to kind of compare it to something like Max Verstappen, Monaco 2018 qualifying, where he clipped the wall, had almost the exact same mistake and binned it. Max Verstappen gets out of the car and still thinks he's the best driver on the entire grid, even if he wasn't at the time. I can't imagine Hadjar thinks the same thing after making that mistake. It's that kind of mentality which I think is important for Red Bull.
Mentality will be key now, right? He can either bounce back like he did after Australia, as you mentioned, Callum, or he can kind of have the Perez spiral, because I think Miami was the trigger for Perez in 2023 as well, when he was thrashed by Verstappen coming through from ninth to win. That kind of broke him in that race, so it's just kind of a case of how he fights back with
If
that mentality.
anything, I think firstly in terms of mentality, the thing that might help Hadjar is the fact that Verstappen also made an error.
Yeah, he didn't win.
He didn't win, but also his race problems weren't, his gearbox failed or somebody else clipped him and he had to change his front wing and drop back loads of places and then fought through to 5th. He had to fight through to 5th because he spun. So in some ways that might help. And I also think in some ways, like you've mentioned, I think Hadjar has a break because I don't think that Red Bull want to because they would bring Lindblad in if they were to replace Hadjar. Like they're not going to bring Lawson. This is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
They're not going to bring Lawson back because that would require admitting that they were wrong, and no F1 team's ever going to do that.
No.
So then they would have to bring Lindblad in, and I don't think that Lindblad is ready for that. I think he's going to be. I think he's good at RB, and that's a good place for him to be as a rookie. But also, I think Red Bull also don't think that Lindblad is ready, so Hadjar does actually have time.
Yeah, there's no
to-
obvious replacement, unlike was the case with Lawson, where you've obviously got Tsunoda who could very much step into that seat in the next race. There's not anyone like that for Hadjar, so he does have a bit more leeway. So yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I was think like first lap of the first race aside, Lindblad hasn't done too much. He's definitely not been sent in the world like since Australia, I don't think. To be honest, if they were to replace Hadjar, I think there is a driver they should go for. Obviously, it would feel very ironic, but I think they should go for Pierre Gasly and try and get him back, because I think he would actually.
I'd love that.
I know what you're talking about. I think Gasly likes being team leader, and so I think he likes being team leader.
That's assuming that he'd actually want to go back there. But like, would he? Bear in mind, like he's got such bad memories there.
And I think if this was Alpine last year, I could see that. I think Alpine this year is all right sometimes.
Yeah, Alpine this year are fine.
Alpine this year are fine, and I think he likes being team leader.
Maybe.
Is this a chance for a segue, Daniel? Or no?
I was going to move on to Mercedes now. So probably not.
Mercedes.
Unless we're thinking,
Segue to Mercedes.
Gasly.
Yeah, Gasly to Mercedes.
Yeah, after Russell's performances.
whoa.
Whoa! What do you
Let's
mean?
talk about it, Jensen. Let's talk about it.
What do you mean his performances?
Performances.
I'm joking. I think Russell's brilliant, but I think he's better than certain drivers we might get to later in the podcast. But we'll get to that later. But I think that look, I mean Russell. I think it's Russell's kind of. I think Russell gets a bad rep in terms of. I know I just slagged him off. But
by you.
You are the people. You're the type of people who are creating that bad rep.
But there's kind of the whole rhetoric of, he does nothing and then wins the race. He does nothing and gets a podium. I think that's not true. I think he's just incredibly consistent. Just because he doesn't get involved in instance and doesn't spin around in the first lap, doesn't mean that he isn't a fantastic driver. It's about taking those opportunities. I think the problem is that Russell recently just hasn't been taking those opportunities. I still do think he's going to win the championship, but he can't win the champion. I don't think the current form he's in would be is championship worthy. I think he would have to turn it around, which I do believe he can do.
No, I was going to say that. I think even though, we at the moment we're very early in, so people have, even though Anthony has been doing well, a lot of people have still been saying, I expect Russell to bounce back. I expect him to be consistent throughout the season, but he does need to have a good performance, a good race. And I don't mean like Miami where he's finishing fourth. I mean like he takes pole position, he gets at least on the podium. We need to see that in the next couple of races for him to kind of remind everyone that he's still here and he should still be considered, not just for everyone else but also for his own confidence as well, because otherwise obviously again Antonelli is even though he's young, but he's on amazing form at the moment, and he's really not shown many signs. Okay, yes, he had a very bad start, but apart from that, I thought he controlled the race for the majority of it. So I think Russell needs a very good performance sooner rather than later.
I think for Russell, or at least this is. I swear I do an actual degree, and I don't just look at every single Instagram post that every single F1 team puts out. I do have a life, but he did say that Miami as well from last year, I think, was a track that he had kind of struggled at. I can't remember what his performance was, but I think he enjoyed driving it. The next race is obviously Canada. Russell took pole and won there last year.
It's a good time for him to bounce back.
And it's a sprint race. I think Russell will want to, at the very least, podium in both of those and ideally win. He'd want to win both of them, but ideally win at least the main race. That was also where Antonelli was good. That was where he got his first podium. But I think for Russell, he will think of that as a good place to target to get back on form. It's it's always been the circuit that he seems to like, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an uptake in form there. But also I think if he has a bad weekend in Canada, that's like him having a bad weekend, not he had a bad weekend because, I don't know, like Oscar Piastri T-boned him in the side of turn one and they both went out, then I think that's when we'd maybe start talking about what does he have to do, what does he need to change, can he change this, can he pick something up.
That's when the
Yeah.
questions start to be
That's
asked.
when the
isn't it?
questions will start to be
Yeah.
asked. Right now, I'm not worried. But
Especially
I
if
agree.
it's in comparison to Antonelli. Like if in Canada Antonelli wins and Russell finishes like 5th, then like people like us, we're the people who start asking questions and put these drivers under pressure.
I will ask you many questions
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, George Russell, if you're listening to this, can you win Canada, please, to keep my World Championship prediction alive?
George Russell, if you're listening to this, can you come on the podcast?
Yeah.
Please, I beg.
Yeah, it'd be great for the clips. Now, but I think the main thing is I don't trust just yet Anthony's consistency. I think obviously again, just like Russell, the next few races will be integral to Anthony's season, because it kind of comes down to whether you want a driver who gives you 3 10 out of 10 races and 3 4 out of 10 races, or a driver who gives you 3 8 out of 10 races and 3 6 out of 10 races. It'll kind of be a bit. It could come down straight to the wire just because of that, like 19. I don't know why 1984. For those of us who remember when Niki Lauda beat Alan Prost by half a point, because even though Alan Prost was a much better driver, Niki Lauda is much more consistent. Yeah, again, for those of us who remember.
Watching that live, it was quite a while ago for me.
Oh, mate, you should have been there, man.
Isaac Hadjar watched it live, but you weren't born yet.
we should maybe analyse, because like we obviously all have this like assumption that Russell was going to be the obvious championship contender, and I guess that was from the fact that Mercedes were probably going to be the fastest car, and they indeed are. But like realistically, even though he is consistent, he's never actually been in a position where he's consistently fighting for the championship. So
I don't know, that 21 Williams was pretty solid.
Yeah. That second place, never forget.
He was
People
60
forget-
seconds behind, but he was there.
People forget the true robbery of Abu Dhabi 2021. George Russell finished in like P12, but had he won that race, he would have
won the championship. He's never
That's
had
a
the
lie.
experience of being in a,
Didn't he
in a
retire?
championship contending car. So this is also, even though yes, he has a lot more experience in the sport, this is also his first time where he has that opportunity. So whether he can live up to everyone's expectations of him, I don't know. It might just, I guess we all kind of just thought that even though he might not have been able to consistently win races, there just wasn't really going to be anyone else around, because we thought Antonelli was still going to be slightly inexperienced and not picking up every single result, and other teams just weren't going to be able to touch Mercedes. So it's maybe we were all just overestimating George Russell.
I'm not saying overestimating George Russell. We've mentioned how George Russell needs to have a good run of form. But also that Antonelli also needs to show that this isn't just like a peak. Like he's not just that his driving is not like a sine curve that just keeps going up and down. That it's a consistent straight line.
Yeah, for sure.
For the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on and get that maths.
Yeah.
Put that maths.
Yeah.
in
It's
there.
the most Warwick analogy you've ever heard. Yeah.
Hold on, I do an essay subject.
That's
I do quant modules. So
Okay,
that's
fair
not,
enough, fair enough.
But if both Russell and Antonelli have a few bad weekends, do we then start to talk about McLaren and the McLaren drivers being threats to Mercedes? Or no?
Yes, I was going to actually mention that. I think. I mean, Lando
personally would
Norris,
start to think about it if they start to keep doing well.
Lando Norris hasn't. I know this is his first podium of the year, but Lando Norris hasn't been too bad at all. I thought the sprint was amazing. I thought from him.
Yeah.
Obviously, he probably should have won today, but I think I think he's become a very, very consistent driver, and I think that might play a huge part considering reliability and the inconsistencies of Antonelli, and shown a bit by Russell. So it could be a bit of a dark horse, which just sounds mental to say considering he won last year. And the same goes for Piastri as well. I think Piastri has actually shown quite a lot of pace this year.
Would be wild if McLaren come back from 3 DNSs in the first 2 races to be championship contenders.
It's what would happen, honestly, because.
But then I do actually think that is genuinely a possibility, because I think McLaren are so good at upgrading. Like, definitely, I think we mentioned this last time because a lot of teams were bringing upgrades, and I thought that the McLaren upgrades were going to work. And I easily think that in a couple of races' time they could be challenging for wins. Obviously, they are starting on the back foot, so it will be a lot more difficult for them, and so therefore, if they were able to win, it would be a lot more miraculous than what it was last year.
It would be kind of almost much more like when Verstappen was in it last
Yeah,
year.
exactly. It would be that kind of similar thing. But I definitely think
reigning
that...
world champion having to come from behind to win the championship.
Yeah. But no, I think it's... I think it's definitely a possibility that they could at least upset the ante and make things a bit more unpredictable in terms of just constantly predicting a Mercedes win.
Especially if the thing that, which I think is still true. What Mercedes have been, what has been Mercedes' super strong point, and remains their super strong point, has been their engine and continues to be their engine. You know, which is why McLaren, as a customer team who have a Mercedes engine, in some ways have maybe a more immediate chance of challenging them than Ferrari and Red Bull, because there's not that immediate offset. Like Mercedes, of the 8 Mercedes drivers, 7 of them finished in the top 10 in this race.
Nice.
And the one who
Just
didn't,
stats.
and the one who didn't was because Liam Lawson drove into him.
So that's a barrel roll.
Which you know, I think, admittedly, Adjuro comes in after this, or at least it was due to. I don't know if it still is, but McLaren seem like the immediate challengers because Mercedes still seem very much on top when it comes to their engines.
I think so. I think it's definitely a case of understanding instead of bringing performance upgrades, right? And that can happen pretty quickly in Formula One when you've got the best people in that sector working on understanding. It's something they are able to do, and
new regulations as well. You can have a single upgrade that can have huge amounts of performance as well.
I'd argue McLaren's this weekend has
absolutely.
You know,
And Red
7
Bulls.
upgrades they brought, which is huge. I mean, Ferrari brought 11, but you know, it's
That's
Didn't work
Ferrari
out for them anyway.
I actually don't trust either of the Ferrari drivers anyway to challenge for the title.
Okay.
Like this year or just ever?
Well, obviously not ever, because one of them's won
Ferrari
7.
strategists to provide a
No, I
I
think
just
Leclerc's
don't-
really overrated.
I just don't trust
Oh,
that.
really?
I just don't trust
Get
that
into
the
it.
Ferrari car combined with the drivers and how they react to the car can be consistent
the
enough
whole
at
system.
the
Yeah,
moment.
the whole
Yeah.
system.
Like
is
the
just
whole
broken.
package of one driver and their team.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think is solid enough.
Yeah, I just think I agree, but I also think Leclerc's really not impressing me at all.
Speaking
I think
of Leclerc,
he's-
is this another good chance for a segue down?
Yeah.
No, I want to listen to Jensen.
Well, I mean, this is
Why?
well, I mean, this is the driver I was referring to. I think Russell's better than Leclerc. I don't think Leclerc's a top 5 driver on the grid. I think that. What?
Not even top 5.
Okay, no, because I'd have Verstappen over him. I'd have Russell over him. I'd have the 2 McLaren boys over him, and then you could put but I think Hamilton has proven himself more. I think in terms of
Where is Lance Stroll though?
yeah, Mazepin. No, he's still racing with us in spirit, Nikita Mazepin.
Please
but-
no.
Yeah, please not. I just think that like you can be quick, but if you don't have any I just really don't trust him at all anytime I'm watching him. And I think Miami's a perfect example of that. I think it feels like I'm watching Arsenal every time I watch Leclerc. It's like, it doesn't matter how good he may seem on the day. I just feel like he's always going to bottle it. And people talk about how Ferrari do mess stuff up, and they do. Absolutely they do. But in the end, like the best drivers are the drivers that can deal with that adversity and still be the best driver on their day. Because
but hang on, we're talking about Ferrari here. Like,
This feels very French women's football team, where it's like they had 11 players to Germany's 10 for 105 minutes in the women's Euros and still lost.
But that's it's like it's true. It's like but Verstappen last year was unbelievable despite the adversity, and this is coming from someone who complains a lot over the radio. All right, and like I think I would only ever trust Leclerc to do well when it's his day. When it's not his day, he's nowhere. Like I used to be a massive Leclerc fan. I still do want him to do well, but I think back to things like, well, for example, Miami today or Silverstone 25. I feel like it gets completely forgotten about when Leclerc has a bad race, just because he's a fan favourite. And I think maybe he's 5th, but I don't trust him even if he had one of the quickest cars. I think
the trouble is we haven't really actually seen him in a position where he could fight for consistent wins, really, because of his team. So I think for me personally, when thinking about Leclerc, it's not that I don't consider him at all to be one of the best drivers on the grid or capable of winning lots of races. It's just that we haven't seen him in a position where he's been able to prove that or he's been able to prove himself or disprove himself, because Ferrari do make a lot of mistakes, whether it is the car being awful and not there, or because their strategy is just awful and they make really poor calls. And so we haven't really given him a chance to like provide evidence for that. So I mean, Maybe. Who knows? I got no idea.
But then when it does come to it, then it comes to like 2022. Obviously, Ferrari did make mistakes then, but spinning out in the bit when you're at the front of the race with absolutely no pressure whatsoever in France 2022. I don't know if I said that.
To be fair, I don't think that I feel like I remember that race differently to everyone else because I remember watching that and I thought Leclerc was just in the lead temporarily because the Red Bulls had already pitted and they were probably caught up with it.
I think they were still like. I think I don't think he had pit yet, but I think he'd led the rest of the race before that.
Net lead,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And he.
That's not paying enough attention.
Fair enough. It's poor karma. Like, yeah, who does?
I was too blind to watch the.
Yeah.
To look at the timing.
Fair enough. But that's like. But from then everyone knew that he wasn't going to win the championship, even though he was only about 20 points behind when he'd already he had a gap double that by the second race, and it's just because you don't have any trust in Leclerc ever to turn things around. It's never okay, let's say Ferrari messed up the strategy a bit, and let's say Leclerc's second and it goes down to fourth. You would never trust him to get back up to that second position. Never.
Do you know what? Actually, I think the point you mentioned there, I do agree with you that you never trust him alone to turn things around. Because I did obviously mention that we haven't really had a chance to prove it, but yes, you are right that you think that. I mean, obviously, I'm going to mention Verstappen and the fact that if Red Bull was not on it, then he could just pull something out the bag and pull wonders. I think it's a bit unfair because I don't think you need to necessarily be. I don't think you need to be Max Verstappen to challenge for consistent race wins. Like, Max is a once-in-a-generation talent, I think. Yeah. So I think it's a bit different for that. So maybe he would be able to fight for consistent wins if he was at a top team. But he's definitely not anything, incredibly revolutionary in terms of a driver. Absolutely not.
I think, I do... I completely agree. I think it's just that a lot of people would put him in that category. I've seen certain YouTubers just say it's Verstappen, Leclerc, and then everyone else. It's there's a huge gap between Leclerc and the rest of the field, and I think that's so disrespectful to everyone else. Exactly. It's I think
Verstappen's in his own tier.
Verstappen is his own tier.
Yeah, I mean, it's
right
rocky this year.
Verstappen right now is in his own tier.
Yeah, at the moment.
Verstappen of the last few years is the last 3 years is in his own tier.
We've now tuned into a driver ranking episode of the Warwick F1 show.
I mean, I'm down for it. I mean, I think the Verstappen's prime is the best prime I've ever seen, shortly followed by Vettel's, and I think obviously it's Verstappen obviously is a different beast, but it's just I think Leclerc in terms of I think Leclerc has to prove himself more to be a world champion.
My biggest problem with Charles Leclerc is his lack of assertiveness on the radio because he was teammates with Carlos Sainz for 4 seasons, and it feels like he didn't learn that skill from Carlos Sainz to be able to oppose Ferrari's strategy when they're obviously messing it up and only challenge them after the fact, like we saw that on Sunday. Why did we pit? When's the rain coming? He clearly thought it was a bad choice, but he didn't challenge them before they actually went into the pits.
Exactly. He was he was saying, "Oh, discuss this stuff with me beforehand," but it's he's never really opening the discussion, you see. And also, I mean, in terms of when it was Sainz and Leclerc, I mean, you bring that up. I mean, they kind of matched each other for pace, and Sainz is very, very good, but he's not exactly setting the world alight at Williams, with all due respect.
He
lost out to Albon last year, and I'd say is around Albon's pace this year, and Albon's not a top 5 driver. So I think that, and I love Albon for the record.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't? Absolutely. I just think that Leclerc a lot of the time isn't at the level, and then when he should be at the level, he will slip and fumble and whatever. And I think that's what, but I'll stop berating Leclerc.
Okay, one more thing. Would you not agree that Charles Leclerc is in the top 5 wheel-to-wheel racers on the current grid?
Wheel-to-wheel racers, yeah, but then I wouldn't. But I wouldn't put Verstappen in the top 3 wheel-to-wheel racers.
Would you not?
No, I wouldn't. I'd probably put Lewis 1 actually. I think Lewis is such. But that's also about what I respect in a wheel-to-wheel racer. I don't obviously it's legal, but I don't like having drivers forced off the track and whatnot.
That's
different for me. I'd argue that Lewis isn't aggressive enough in his wheel-to-wheel racing, and he tends to pull back too often.
Potentially, but I don't know. I think he But I think again he doesn't need to, and I think it's like, I mean, if you look at Lewis in his prime, like, can you think of a time when Lewis was push a driver off the track? No, but he still won 7 more titles. Do you know what I mean?
Do agree on that point,
Yeah.
in that there are aspects to Lewis where you're like, how has he managed that without having the characteristics of a
Yeah.
Schumacher, Senna, Verstappen?
Yeah,
kind of thing?
I'd probably put Leclerc like second or third as a wheel-to-wheel racer.
I think he's immense in wheel to wheel.
He is, yeah, absolutely.
Personally, and I think Verstappen is.
I think
immense as
you
well,
find that in how Verstappen races with him. Actually, I think Leclerc is one of the drivers that Verstappen actually respects in terms of in terms of his wheel to wheel racing, and so I think I've noticed that aspect when in terms of Leclerc's wheel to wheel racing.
I feel like I've come underprepared to this podcast.
We didn't know that we were going to go into this level of depth, though.
we have gone down a rabbit hole. I'll be
We
honest.
really
In-
have.
in
We
my
said,
head-
we need to climb back
Yeah.
out.
in
Miami,
my head,
America, let's
we're
go.
still
Yeah.
we're still on the George Russell in my head. And because I don't
No.
think I asked another question since then.
Well, we've basically just gone through the Leclerc segment now, though.
No,
Sure.
oh yeah, that's done. We have to
Yeah.
start wrapping up. I'm just gonna
This room booking's about to end.
to put a bow on the thing about Mercedes, George Russell, because we didn't cover this, but George Russell said it was low grip circuits that he struggles with. I'm not sure how many circuits on the calendar are classified as low grip, but I guess that number would influence the course of his season. And
I mean, if 2 of the low grip circuits happen to be Japan and Miami, then I'd probably take.
That's just giving me vibes in football where they say like the ball wasn't pumped up
Yeah,
before it's been
exactly.
raining
Well,
or something.
you
It's
make
just
a
like,
good
what is
point.
that?
Japan is not low grip.
Yeah.
That is not a low grip circuit. So
Yeah.
I'm
But
not,
also, you know,
it's concerning.
I'm
for
not
his
in these drivers' heads, so kind of who am I to be
Yeah.
commenting?
And also, it's
But
low
also-
grip for all the drivers.
And also, yeah.
Yeah,
But it's also like,
Yeah.
isn't Las Vegas low grip? And he's pretty good around there, isn't he? So
another great point.
yeah, so he goes both ways. Russell
So
maybe.
he's chatting waffle.
Yeah,
pretty
he's
much.
chatting absolute
this-
trot.
Well,
How
Oscar
much is he
Piastri
chatting
last year as
waffle
well.
because he doesn't know why he's having off days, and how much of it is him chatting waffles because he
He doesn't-
knows why he's having off days and he
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
want to admit that he's having off
Yeah,
days.
you know, I do actually really like Russell, but he's been really annoying me this year. In terms of
Is there anyone who's not been annoying you this year?
Lewis, I love Lewis. You can't do no. Alvin, I love Alvin. He can do no wrong. Other than that, no. I
You
think that
2-driver F1 grid just for Jen.
yeah, I mean, I'm down, yeah. But I think that Russell, like, he's been playing so much over the radio recently, and I just think, for that someone to sound like Roy King, just do your job. Like,
I don't mind. I
Just
don't
get on with the
actually.
game.
I don't actually make. This is also because I know when I do. This is very much because I know when I do things, I basically provide. Most of the time, it's internal. But I feel like if I had a radio, I would make it external. I provide a massive running commentary on everything I do, and so I don't never mind a bit of complaining because I know if I were in that position. Even if it's not like an actual complaint, I want somebody to do something about. I too
True,
would just
yeah.
be saying all that.
Yeah, I think it's just with Russell. It's always like I feel like he's always kind of on the offensive. Of like he always feels like he's under attack. I think back to after like I think it was it might have been Vegas last year, one of the last races last year, maybe Qatar. And he went up to Norris after in the post race and was like, "Apparently you blamed me," and Norris was like, "No, I didn't." And he didn't leave it at that. He was like, "Well, that's what they're saying." And it's just like, I don't know. I think he just needs. He's being a bit of a brat right now, and I think he just needs to like.
He just needs to calm down.
He does need to calm
I
down.
think
Yeah.
everyone needs to calm down.
Yeah.
They,
Exactly.
they always need to hug it out, guys.
Yeah,
Everyone
exactly.
just needs a bit more sleep.
Exactly.
including me.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm
we
always
will
tired.
this time of year we will need a bit more sleep. I think.
Yeah, they're just leaning into the stress of exam season. That's what it is.
Yeah, they'll be fine in June.
We kind of breezed through the McLarens as well. One thing that was easy to miss, I think, was Lando Norris had rear wing issues, which meant he had to slow down a little bit.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't.
throughout
I
the
did not
race,
notice
so
that.
that might be why he kind of dropped a bit more
Feels
pace.
like
with
everyone had
Antonelli.
issues.
Yeah.
Antonelli had issues. He couldn't shift into
Yeah,
eighth
his
gear.
gearbox was.
We couldn't shift into
He
8.
couldn't shift into
Still
eight.
won the race.
Yeah.
It might be generation.
Well, I think it only lasted a few laps.
okay, fine. But like,
Antonelli's at the top of your list now.
yeah, like.
Oh my goodness.
Leclerc's been moved.
Just now,
Let's down to 7.
seven.
Sorry, but that did strike me by surprise as well. I mean, obviously Norris also had issues, but then.
UF run race where we take a gear away from the drivers each lap and see who can.
Oh
yeah,
my
and yeah, stick some drivers on wet tires as well, just to make it more exciting.
I'd be fine with that. I'd get my prediction.
That's happened before, I swear. There was a driver in history who went through a race and was just kept losing gears until.
I feel like that must have happened
Senna?
many
It
times.
happened to Senna in
Senna.
Brazil 91, I think it was 91.
I knew I could rely on you, James.
Thank you very much.
I think it happened to Loud once as well in
this
85.
this is the best race. Sorry.
I think it happened to Lauder as once in 84 or 85.
We're not surprised.
He
Well,
also
it'd be
lost
80
like half his
I think it'd
gears.
be 84 because I think he retired at the end of 84. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, like there was the whole thing. He kept on losing gears, and then only had gear 3, and then did the entire race in gear 3 and won the race whilst Mansell was trying to hunt him down, and he like feigned on the podium. Brilliant watch if anyone wants
I
to do
have
it.
watched it. It is a good watch.
Yeah, any of
Can
us.
recommend.
For those of us who watched it live, of course, then we're like the
I
OGs.
didn't watch it live.
Yeah.
Callum's too
Yes,
young.
Yeah.
Just about.
Yeah. What are you like? 34?
How dare you?
Yeah.
Can we talk really quickly? We're about to get into predictions, but can we talk really quickly about someone who had his best ever Formula One result on Sunday? Franco Colapinto finished 7th position, best result. He had an 8th position in Baku 2024, and since then it's been pretty torrid for him. So finally able to get some decent points on the board. What was different about this weekend? What meant that he was able to extract that performance from the Alpine ahead of Gasly and kind of get
I've
up
got
there?
no idea what was necessarily different about this weekend, but you mentioned Gasly, and I think for me what stood out was that admittedly this was because Gasly, we kind of, from the main race at least, we didn't get a kind of benchmark from Gasly about where Colapinto was performing, but I think it could have been much better than that.
But
It would be-
Colapinto outqualified
He
him.
outqualified him at least, but I think what is that he seemed. There was no point of the race where it seemed like he was uncomfortable in his position, in where he was fighting. Sometimes I'll watch, like especially maybe last year, or even when he was at Williams, loath as I am to admit that anyone at Williams could ever do anything wrong, is that I would sometimes watch him and he would be up highly, be performing well, but I would be expecting him to drop down the order, or I would look at something and think, oh well, that's clearly just because no people around him have pitted or haven't pitted, and that's why he's gone up higher. Whereas in Miami, I watched that and I didn't think at any point he was in 8th and then got sort of post-race promoted, is that there was no point where I was watching that and thought he's only in 8th temporarily and he's going to be in P12 by the end of the race. I was pretty confident he'd finish around that point as well.
Yeah, and I think it's good signs for Alpine as well, because obviously we like, it's pretty much guaranteed at this point that Pierre Gasly is going to be consistent. I think he's been absolutely amazing in that seat, really for the past couple of seasons. And now we're in a position where Alpine actually look to have a very good car. Like I think they might even be like 5th fastest on the grid at the moment. I mean, before I might have said that was because of Gasly just inflating them up of the order and making them look better than they are. But if Colapinto can match that, maybe not consistently, but if he's up there fighting, then things are looking very good for Alpine in these new regulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think actually Colapinto is quite underrated for a bit. I thought it was overrated. Now I thought it was underrated. Now I think that's obviously he's quite inconsistent. But I do think in terms of like he it's almost like he came in and it was kind of de facto for everyone, the worst driver on the grid. And obviously he didn't make it. The main problem for people originally was that he made a lot of mistakes, but I think he's kind of got that out of his system, especially this year. And I think that he's kind of proving a lot of people wrong. I think if you still consider him to be the worst driver on the grid, I think you kind of he would definitely be the best worst driver that Formula One has ever had. I think, and I think. Well, do you disagree?
No, fair enough. It's just a
unique
unique
way of putting it. I like it.
Yeah, no, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider Stroll to be the worst driver on the grid, but that's also, I think, the first time in Stroll's career that I would consider him to be the worst driver on the grid, just because I think Colapinto's been impressing. I think Gasly's been impressing, even if you think that Alpine could be hideously underdriven for all we know, but I do doubt it a little bit, and I do think that it's a mixture of both the car and the drivers of why they're considered now the best of the rest.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think they're just having a good time, and I just hope they continue to have a good time, because I like it when people perform well consistently.
Mm.
Yeah, it's good to see after, as you say, when he has not been very consistent and has not been doing too well in the
Yeah.
teams that he's been at.
Yeah.
So it's good. Hopefully it continues for him.
Yeah. Did anyone see Lewis giving him the finger?
Yes.
Yes.
Wait, why?
After the
Because was that first corner? Or
No.
like after the,
Mm,
or was
first
that later?
lap?
First lap.
It was
Stop.
the first lap.
First
and
lap.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was after because it was a place at the end of the weird first row where it's kind of curvy but also not. You know what I mean? And he like got pushed off going to the stadium section. Gave Lewis damage. That's why he was a bit of a bum for the rest of the race, and so he flipped him off. But then I think after the race they they talked to each other and seemed to be getting on quite well afterwards. So there shouldn't be any
not
sort
what
of,
you see from Hamilton, is it?
I mean, but he's not the type of guy to hold a grudge either, so I'm not
Yeah.
surprised they made
Yeah.
up afterwards.
yeah. Aside from Max,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my word, the sprint. We haven't even talked about their battle in the sprint. That was
Yeah.
incredible.
I don't want to talk about the sprint.
Yes.
Because that was the only thing of note.
yeah, we'll send the readers to sleep, just like
Yeah.
the sprint did.
Yeah, but come on, guys, it's nostalgia. Max versus
True.
Lewis.
Yeah,
It was great to
close.
watch, but it was the type of nostalgia which just gives me really bad stress. It just
Yeah,
watch
it gives me a nervous twitch.
I just watch that, and then there's a bit of me that's like, "Oh, this is really exciting. I should watch this." And then there's a bit of me that just like wants to squeeze my eyes shut and hope that they'll stop fighting soon because I'm about to stop panicking.
We've talked about this before.
Isn't
about-
it the
It's
thing
just-
of
it's-
nerves
it's
and
the
bad
same-
anxiety,
It's
yeah.
the same as with Jeddah.
like,
I just-
Yeah, it
like
gives you
driving
bad
in the
anxiety.
left lane, right?
Yeah,
Lucy?
I'm getting better at that. I did lots of practice over Easter of driving in the left-hand lane with minimal stress. There was no panicking this time. I suspect if I saw like Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton fighting ahead of me on the N25, that would completely undo all of
Imagine
that.
them just doing that in like a Peugeot and a...
Just imagine that being in like,
Citroen or
it's like a
something.
Kia Niro.
like a Toyota Yaris or something
Yeah.
like that.
That would be surreal,
Not
to
that
say
I
the
think
least.
that they own those cars.
I
but
think that
anyway.
I'd like
Yeah.
this. That would be a sort of thing where I'd
Super
come on the podcast and I'd tell you that happened and you would not believe me.
Yeah, you're right. I wouldn't believe
No,
you.
no one would.
I mean,
No,
speak for yourself. I could see Max driving a Fiat 500 any day of the week.
He'd choose it over nothing.
Yeah, choose over this Red Bull.
Over the Red Bull, yeah. Yeah.
Rebel branded.
He,
Fiat
it
500.
makes a Fiat 500. Even though it's a small car, he would try and make it as wide as humanly possible. when
Yes,
he's riding
exactly.
people off the road.
Let's get into our predictions now that we made in the preview episode.
We have to.
We do have
Yes.
to,
Because
Callum.
I did quite well.
Okay, fine.
I did some maths because I had some free time somehow, and
How?
we. Sorry,
How?
how did I have free time?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Can you tell me your secret?
Magicked it up.
I thought the passage of time came for us all eventually.
Oh, not the passage of time again.
Well, actually, I think I just cut sleep out of my schedule. You should try it. It's
That's a good idea, actually.
yeah,
That is actually solid.
more hours in the day. You only need about 3 hours. Anyway, we
You know, I've only just had an F1 weekend where I didn't have to cut sleep out my schedule.
yeah. I thought
It's a good
6
time.
6 p.m. was a great time.
Yeah, that was good
I
fun,
enjoyed
actually.
that.
That was pretty
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, FAA.
Yeah.
I did some basic addition, and across the three of us as co-hosts, I wanted to see what kind of scores we had. Callum only joined us for predictions from the Chinese Grand Prix onwards, so that's when we started. And to give you our aggregate scores across the 3 race weekends that we've been predicting, Callum, you're currently on a total of 2 points. Lucy, you're on 4, and I managed to kind of get ahead somehow with 7. So let's see if we can get any better.
I
predictions
think
that
I
we made
might
for
actually
Miami.
have vaguely done that.
Yeah,
We should
yeah.
say, even though I appreciate that I am lost and I've done awfully, like, over 3 races is that.
Yeah.
The total points. We are so bad at this.
Well, I
Because you said that Anwar got 14 from a single race.
wasn't going to bring it up on the
Okay, right.
I can't. Yeah, people can't be known.
That's
that
right, he's
my,
not listening. But,
my predecessor was doing better than me. I can't have people knowing that.
No, I'm not
Yeah, hopefully we can add to that this weekend. I'll quickly walk through Harvey's predictions. We are having a guest kind of a total as well, but we have to do that as averages because guests aren't on every preview, of course. So we are totaling that as well. Harvey decided that Charles Leclerc was going to win the sprint, which did not happen. No points there. P1 was Russell. No. P2 Leclerc. Unfortunately not, especially after the 20-second penalty. P3 Norris, so that is 1 point because he was 1 position off. P4 Antonelli, which is no, he underestimated him. And P5, Piastri, who he also underestimated. So that's 1 point from his sprint and top 5. Lucy, would you like to walk us through?
Yeah, I thought I'd done
Yours?
better than I had done because in my head I had the Mercedes drivers the other way around in my predictions, so that's rough. I said Antonelli would win the sprint. He didn't. I think none of us actually predicted that Norris was going to win the sprint. We had 2 Leclercs and 2 Antonellis.
That's it.
I said Piastri P1, so I get nothing for that. I said Russell P2, so I get nothing for that. I said Hamilton P3, so I get nothing for that. I said Antonelli P4, so I get nothing for that. And I said Leclerc P5. So I could have got something for that, but then he got 20 seconds worth of penalties and decided to wreck his car for some reason.
Damn, we're actually washed at this, aren't we?
In my head, I thought I'd done really well because I thought I'd predicted Russell and Antonelli the other way round, and so I thought, I'll get some points from Antonelli and I'll get full points for Russell, but no.
Okay, I may as well walk through my sprint and top 5 because it's very similar to yours, Lucy. Sprint, I also put Antonelli to win, which didn't happen. P1 Piastri as well. P2 Russell, so no. And then I put Antonelli P3, which again underestimated, and P4 Norris and P5 Leclerc, so no points from those. How about yours, Callum? Did you do any better?
No. So sprint win was Leclerc, no. Russell first, no. Piastri second, 1 point.
1 point. Well, you got a point.
One
You got a point from your
Go
top
on,
5.
son.
Anthony third, no. Leclerc fourth, no. Norris fifth, no. 1 point.
Unfortunate. Well, we'll see if you get any more moving forward.
No, I will not. Spoiler alert.
The amount of 0 points I'm hearing, it sounds like Aston Martin season so far, to be honest.
Ooh, good one. Harvey selected Max Verstappen as his DNF. No, but he probably easily could have been at any point when he was overtaking or spinning. And his random prediction was one Ferrari annoys the other Ferrari by ignoring team orders, which I don't believe
I don't
happened
think that
at
happened.
any
I don't
point.
think that
I think
They weren't close
think
enough.
they were both annoyed, but not with each other.
Yeah,
Yes.
both individually having really
The typical Ferrari
We'll
experience.
discover that Ferrari don't actually have any race engineers. They just connect the 2 radios together, so the in like the pit wall, so the drivers.
Oh my
god!
god! Imagine if Hamilton and Leclerc could speak to each other. It's like, this is awful. What? I can't imagine what that's gonna be like because otherwise I would swear we're not allowed to do that on this podcast.
Yes.
But
Must have been the wind, honestly, before.
Lucy, your DNF and random prediction.
I actually get points. I get points. I said Hulkenberg was going to DNF. I actually also called that it would be some sort of engine-y problem. So
Well, you were right about that.
Yeah.
Audi were on fire pretty much all weekend.
yeah, real. DNF Hulkenberg. My random was at least 1 car starts on the full wet tyres. That did not happen because it did not rain. But I went for it and it didn't happen, but I'm still glad I went for it, you know?
Yeah, you have to have a punt.
You
I mean-
lose all of the battles you don't fight or something. I don't know what it is.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the saying, but it's true.
Lucy being like Sun Tzu out here or something.
I have read that book actually, it's really good.
What, the answer?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
My friends read it as well, yeah.
Does
Yeah,
he
my
give you any
granddad
advice
gave-
on how to
Yeah, my
do
gran-
F1 predictions?
My granddad gave it to me for my 18th birthday.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, that was what he thought
Does
I
it
needed
just
to go
get,
off
what's
to
it actually
university.
contain? Is it just like a load of tactics?
There's a load of war strategy in it.
A lot
Oh,
of it,
sweet.
from what I find, a lot of it's quite basic. And kind of like, if don't do this, but it's kind of obvious
Shoot
stuff. Like,
in the direction of your head.
If you have
We can cut this out,
if you
by the
have fewer soldiers than your enemy, maybe consider don't engage them.
yeah, it's basically like that.
But it's a good,
That was
it's a good book,
groundbreaking.
and it's only like 100 pages long. Can recommend.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
might do
Is
that.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty short.
Might
Okay.
do that.
We can
Okay.
declare war on other societies.
Check it out.
New
That's
F1
good.
quiz round.
Well, that is, I mean, that's for your decision to make. Really.
Yeah, Warwick War.
Warwick. What?
Hey.
Yeah, I'll run through my random and DNF to bring it back to Formula 1, as we are a Formula 1 podcast. I put, who did I say was going to DNF? I said Carlos Sainz was going to DNF, which didn't happen, although he probably felt close to it when Verstappen was coming up his
He
inside.
did not feel close to it. He had a lovely race, very solid points.
A solid double points for Williams.
Williams double points.
Mute your mic.
We're sorry if you've just been wearing headphones and you
Yeah.
have it is very loud.
I have just been yelling that the whole time. My mic's just been mute.
Yeah, one slipped out. Random prediction: no points for VCarb, which actually came through.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they had points at every previous weekend this
Wait,
season.
but then it's not actually VCub, is it? It's RB.
It's
So are we
RB.
allowing that as a prediction?
Oh, this is
The full formal title is Visa Cash App Racing Balls. Do you want me to say that?
I
on
thought
the
it was
podcast?
RB.
It
from
is
the
on.
quiz.
I took it from the website where they're known as RB.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it was VCAR in 2024, and they changed it to RB for literally no reason 2025 onwards. But
Right.
yeah.
Well, come on, guys.
Yeah.
No, wait, I run this podcast. What are we talking about?
I mean, it's up to you. You're
No.
down the points.
Did
no,
they
we'll
get?
allow,
And
we'll
they didn't
allow.
get points in the sprint either, did they?
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
No.
Otherwise, I'd have a 0 pointer, guys. Have some sympathy here, please.
We could be on 3 points together.
Speaking of 0 pointers, Callum, you were pretty close, I believe.
Well, I'm not adding any more to my total of 1 so far. My DNF was Sergio Perez, and both Cadillacs did actually manage to finish, even though they were at the back of the grid, separated by a 1 Lance Stroll. And then my random prediction was 2 or more drivers would not start, and I believe everyone started.
Yeah,
but we
I-
had 4
Did
people who
Hulkenberg
did
If we-
start?
finish.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Yeah,
If we included the sprint, you would have got that right because 2 drivers did not
that's
start
true.
the
Actually,
sprint,
I think I
but-
remember thinking this on the Saturday.
I was thinking that on the Saturday. I was like, oh damn it, Callum's going to get his prediction.
Yeah.
But then I remembered we didn't count the sprint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but oh well.
So Harvey and Callum tied on 1 point, and Lucy and myself tied on 3 points for the
Oh.
weekend.
Does that mean you've reached double digits?
I have now reached 10 points.
And I've reached
The
7.
grand
No
total.
way.
You're on 7.
Callum's on
Callum's
3.
languishing on 3. And I should say as well, for the guest's average is 2 points per weekend, which is higher than Callum's 1 point per weekend.
Thank you very much.
Which is largely thanks to Harvey's brilliant Chinese Grand Prix predictions, for which he earned a whopping 3 points, which we've proven we can't do any better than. So,
But all it would take is for one of us to have a spot on weekend for that to all change.
Yeah, just one spot on.
Watch
weekend.
this space for Canada, and I will be back.
Yes.
okay, you have a long time to think about it. Too long, I'd say.
I fear I dragged Daniel down with me because we made such similar predictions. Usually you're pretty good at it, and then you made the similar predictions to me, and you should have known you were doomed.
Yeah, you said you might have actually cooked, and when you said that, I knew it was not going to
No, I only said I might have actually cooked because you had the same.
Well, I know,
predictions as me.
and I knew it was going to be the opposite case, but as it was. That brings us to an end to this extensive and rather chaotic, I fear, Miami Grand Prix review episode. Thank you everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed the race as well. Thank you to Callum, Lucy, and Jensen for joining me for this episode and debriefing the weekend. We're going to be back with a mystery episode next week, which is code for me not knowing what episode we're going to have, but I'll think of one to record, and then we'll be back with the Canada preview in 2 weeks' time. So make sure you tune in to those. So yeah, we'll have some weekly content as usual. Thank you for listening, everyone. Goodbye.